Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast, coming to you live after a Chargers victory in Cleveland, 27-10. I certainly was not expecting the rest of that game to go the way that it did after Myles Garrett got 2 sacks off of Rashawn Slater right off the bat. But people in my mentions were talking about benching Rashawn Slater. That's the kind of day that was, apparently. So it's kind of a weird day. Chargers decided to rebound and obviously, basically shut the entire Cleveland Browns offense down for the bulk of the day. So 27-10. A lot to dive into today with my guy Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing today?
Doing very well. That was the best win the Chargers have had this season. I know people had mentioned the Browns were bad. The Browns were definitely bad today, that's for sure. But I don't think this is truly a bad Browns team. And I don't want the national media to say, well, it's the 2-7 Browns. This was a team that beat the Ravens last week, and it's not like the Ravens looked bad today. Ravens are a good team, and the Chargers beat up the Browns on the road. Best win of the year, a very impressive win, regardless of the record that's in front of the team.
Yeah, and the Chargers, I think, talked about this as well, where they were essentially viewing the Browns. You brought this up the other day. They were viewing the Browns as a 1-0 team. They were not viewing them as a 2-6 team that they were on paper. And I think the CBS reports were saying before the game, like the energy, the vibes on the Cleveland Browns sideline was drastically different than what it was for the first few weeks. So, the Browns might go into seller's mode before Tuesday's deadline, and we'll see. But the Browns team that they played today was a drastically different team than they played the last few weeks. And I know that the Chargers offense will get to it, right? But like I think you saw the talent on the Browns defense shine through today, even though the Chargers had basically a few big plays that led to the 27 points. And then on offense, I think you saw some good moments from them as well. So the Browns team, much more talented on paper than they showed today, than they showed previously. This is a great win for the Chargers, who have officially matched their win total from last season. Now sitting at 5-3 after going 5-11 last year. So, we're approaching like playoff contender conversations now, and that's probably exactly where Jim Harbaugh wanted this team to be through 9 weeks of the season. They're right in the thick of things in the AFC.
Yeah.
The rest of the conference is kind of taking a step back. So this is, all signs are on track for Jim Harbaugh right now, and we can get into the Week 9 specifics, but just what a turnaround for this team, and specifically on defense. The culture flying around, everything was on display today.
Yeah, it was. I wouldn't say it's a perfect win, and we'll talk about some of the things that were issues, but it was, generally speaking, in most cases in all three phases, although there's a miss here and there, a pretty solid win. As good of a win as we could have asked for. I would have been fine if they won with the last second field goal. You and I predicted like 22-19 or 23-20, whatever it was. And yeah, this was a departure from what we expected. I mean, the Chargers really handled their business. Was it perfect? No, but they handled business. And it's the kind of win that now gives me faith that they are going to make the postseason. Now, we had mentioned it anyway, especially with the state of the AFC. We did our post-bye week check-in, like, hey, here's kind of where everything is. And we both felt the Chargers would make the postseason. But now I feel good about it. Are they going to exceed and get to 12-13 wins? No, I don't think so. They still have some stuff to clean up, and they do face some really good teams coming up. But you kind of just feel like you can. I know it's a rigged thing to say for Chargers fans, but I expect them to beat the Titans and the Patriots and the Raiders and the Broncos later on. If they lose to some other better teams, like let's say the Ravens maybe, or the Bengals or the Falcons, we'll see. But they've kind of earned the ability to lose to those teams now, and I feel confident that they're going to make the postseason.
Yeah, and this, if they had just managed to beat the Cardinals, right, they'd be sitting at 6-2 right now. Although the Cardinals are sitting atop the NFC West at the moment, so that loss looks a little bit better on paper. But assuming they can beat the Titans next week, they're sitting at 6-3. They're right in the mix for the 6th seed. I think the 5 seed is probably not going to happen, just based off of whoever doesn't win the NFC North, whether that's the Steelers or the Ravens, they're probably going to win 11, 12 games at this rate, which is kind of crazy to think about the Steelers in that fashion. But this team is trending up. And I think really, I know the offense had some moments today, where they looked really, really good. They also had some moments where they kind of struggled. I mean, they didn't have a single first down in the third quarter. It was just an awful quarter. So if I'm Joe Ortiz, I'm looking at that offense and saying, man, this defense is playing lights out. This offense is really, really close, and we can get into the DJ Chark situation today. But if I'm Joe Ortiz, I'm looking at the offense and trying to find a way to make some improvements over the next couple of days, whether that is trading for a running back, whether that's trading for a pass catching tight end, a receiver. Not many good receivers out there. Darius Slayton was hurt today, which is not great for his case. But I hope Joe Ortiz is looking at this roster just thinking, man, we just need like one more piece on offense, and then we can like really feel good about where this group can get to over the next month.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a huge swing. Would be awesome, but it doesn't need to be, nor do I think it will be. But an Elijah Molden level acquisition, that would just go out there and help just a little bit. 3 more points in the second half. I don't know, but those things will all matter. So anything else they can find, yeah, I'm all in on a minor addition.
Yeah, I don't think there's any stars out there that are being traded anyways. So great spot for the Chargers to be in, sitting at 5-3, 27-10. I think is certainly more points overall than we all expected. Uncharacteristic day from Cam Dicker, or else they would have 31 points on the board. But we'll see what it is. So I think it's only fair we start with the individual game recap, talking about the Chargers defense, man, and what they were able to do today. So the Cleveland Browns dropped back to pass today 56 different times. And Jameis Winston had 235 yards, 5.1 yards per attempt, 3 interceptions, a garbage time touchdown, 6 turnover worthy plays right now. According to Pro Football Focus, they averaged 3.8 yards per play. This defense was lights out, man. And I don't know where you want to get to specifically to open, but Jesse Minter just continues to stack performances like this. And Eli Apple was playing like the majority of snaps today because Jasir Taylor got injured. Troy Dye is out there making strong impacts. This defensive unit and culture is just really clicking on all cylinders right now.
We've been impressed with the defense, with the talent that they've had with their starters out there. We're discussing Fulton being out there and some of these guys like, wow, look how well the defense is playing, even with these starters out there. They're in backup territory. You already mentioned, Eli Apple, Cam Hart starting, Tarheeb Still, who was awesome today, is starting. Yeah. Troy Dye is playing out there, and there's no drop off. It's the same defense. I'm convinced if you took an entire different roster, gave Jesse Minter 2 weeks, and played them next week, they'd look the same. Like it's amazing.
Yeah,
how this defense looks exactly the same, regardless of who's out there. I've never seen anything like this as a Chargers fan who watches the Chargers consistently and has really been into watching the Chargers. I don't think I've seen this. I've not seen it in the Telesco era. That's for sure.
No,
because I'm so used to, and maybe this is why I underestimated the defense and these players. I'm so used to your starters are good. Some of the players on your defense are okay. Some are bad. When you lose starters, your defense gets worse. And that's like kind of logical. That makes sense.
It happens for most teams in the NFL, honestly.
Yes. Yeah, correct. I mean, the Ravens were down a couple of corners last week, and they got smoked by this Browns team.
Yeah.
With everybody there. I don't know how Jesse Minter's doing it. I hope he has longer than a year with this team. They've been incredible. Just outstanding.
Yeah, start the prairie circles for Jesse Minter to stick around right now, because this is crazy. Like for context purposes, the Chargers starting trio at cornerback to enter the season were Asante Samuel Jr., Christian Fulton, and Jasir Taylor. None of them played or finished today. Jasir started, but I think he got injured like early in the second quarter. So you're starting 2 rookies and Eli Apple out there at cornerback. You acquired Elijah Molden right after training camp. Defensive tackle wise, you're playing a bunch of journeymen who are playing lights out football. It's just amazing to me. And we, like you mentioned, we've seen as Chargers fans, in 2019 when Casey Hayward misses a couple games, the passing defense just craters, and it goes from a good passing defense to an awful passing defense with one player out. Now with this unit, I mean, the way that they are getting Cam Hart and Tariq Still to play. Tariq Still, we've said this before, we were not super huge fans of watching his tape from college, but he was one of the best players on the field out there today. The pass breakup in the end zone to get Elijah Molden's interception was one of the better plays you'll see from any cornerback this weekend. The interception, he cuts right in front of Elijah Moore. Great play. He almost had another interception, had a couple big tackles. Like Tariq Still was a 5th-round pick who was supposed to be a nickel only corner in the NFL, and he started and played every snap on the outside today and was awesome. And it's just it's such a luxury for this Chargers team where they can get to that level of play from the secondary, and you're playing a lot of backups. And then I thought Tariq Still was a great standout today. Elijah Molden was fantastic as well. The interception was obviously more about Tariq Still, but how many times do we see a defensive back get that interception and run it out of the end zone and you get to the 1 or the 2-yard line? He immediately fell down, takes the touchback.
Yeah.
And then to start the second half, he has that great play where he takes the deep route from Elijah Moore. He's in perfect position, forces an incomplete pass. That's a really underrated play where if the Browns have been able to convert that, who knows what happens to this game. So I thought Elijah Molden was consistently around the football today. He's been consistently around the football. As was stated earlier in the chat, he should have 5 interceptions on the year. But it's amazing to me what this group can do from the secondary perspective, regardless of who is playing out there. It's such a luxury, such a great thing to watch for this Chargers team.
Yeah, it really is. And I know, like, not that Jameis Winston is an all-world quarterback, but there's good talent out there on offense. These receivers, the tight ends, running backs as well. Like, there was a lot to have to account for. And early in the game, I think Cam Hart got picked on a little bit, a couple of catches to a couple of different players, and that's fine. And then it was just kind of lights out the rest of the way. I mean, this defense just was outstanding. And it further emphasizes this whole idea of, one, coaching making a difference, and two, Brandon Staley was just not it last year, man. Like there are pieces of 3 years, I should say. Yeah. There are obviously pieces and coaches on that defensive front last year, the previous few years, who were good position coaches, but I've never seen anything like this as a Chargers fan, offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. Someone elevating this entire roster. Someone pointed out in the chat too, like Joe Ortiz said he was going to, upgrade the bottom of the roster, and that it's showing.
Yeah.
And
great call from Nick.
We've heard this, we've heard this in
every GM
times.
in the league says this.
Correct. Right. Even the good ones. To find there's a world where the Chargers have 2 starters in their secondary for the next, 3.5 years that are going to cost them a collective $1.6 million a year.
Yeah.
In Tariq Still and Cam Hart.
Yeah.
And I don't see any reason to make a switch at this point. People are asking about Asante Samuel Jr. Let it ride, man. At this point, these guys have earned the right to be out there. They're playing well. Like, they just allowed, basically 3 points until Cedric Tillman had a great touchdown, which barely counted. Catch. And like, that's just what are you supposed to do with that kind of play?
Yeah.
Just incredible. I'm beyond stoked for this defense. They've been great all year, but even then it feels like they're finding their groove now. Like they're the best points per game defense in the league, and they're getting better, losing players, which is insane. So I can't wait to see what they do. Titans aren't exactly a juggernaut, but the next few offenses after that are going to be a freaking fight. And I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, and this unit has risen to the occasion. Outside of the Cardinals game, from my run defense perspective, they've just been a steady Eddie train, and it's kind of crazy. So PFF does live grades, live stats. We'll see what happens. But as it currently stands, Tariq Still was targeted 13 times, and he allowed 82 yards. 3 forced incompletions, and it currently has a passer rating when targeted of 41. Usually when you see a cornerback targeted 13 times, that passer rating when targeted and yardage allowed is much, much higher. So credit to him, man. It was just a great day to see, from this Chargers rookie class. You're talking about elevating players. I think we also have to include Deion Henley into this conversation. Yeah. He was everywhere today. Run defense. He had a couple hits on Nick Chubb where you could hear the pop of the pads. he was really upset at himself for dropping that interception, but that was a heck of a play, man, and just
Yeah, it
shows
was.
off the range that he has. You know, he had a deep over route where he's carrying David Njoku to the sideline. He's becoming a real player for this team. Which again, a lot of this season is about finding these long-term building blocks. And Deion has shown that he's a very capable, starting linebacker in this league. And you have to think that even, he barely played as a rookie. This is his first real season of starting action. He'll get another offseason in this defense, another offseason with Ben Herbert, another offseason with Navarro Bowman. You have to think that he's going to continue to get better at this point based off of the year 2 jump he's made. So, again, just another piece that there have been some learning moments, right? But when Deion is on, like he was today, this is like legit linebacker one stuff, and it's been great to see from him so far.
I would have settled and been thrilled with, and I can say this for basically every rookie or second year player, half their production or half their play, I would have been thrilled with. We're so used to incremental, like, oh, that's good. Like he'll just get better. And by year 4, he'll be great. Henley is just freaking awesome this year, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know what their plans were for him versus Colson. Obviously, Henley is now the starter regardless, and Colson is dealing with several injuries, but man, like he's played phenomenal. I mean, even if you just gave me the blitzing and the coverage and the run defense and the tackling was still a work in progress, as a guy who was a safety just learning how to play linebacker, I said, sweet, no problem. What a great actual first season for him. For him to also be good, like just to be a 3-down linebacker and be this good right now is incredible. And I don't know how great the linebacker play has been at Michigan in general, but you see with like the Ravens, although Roquan Smith, not so great right now. But, Joe Ortiz, the Ravens emphasized like expensive investments in linebacker. If they can get something any bit similar out of Henley with a 3rd-round contract, sweet. Once again, like Navarro Bowman, fantastic. Nick Neiman, great today. You'd even had a pass breakup when he came in when he subbed in. Troy Dye played great. Once again, Navarro Bowman just awesome. So, yeah, this defense next year, at minimum, seems like they'll have, depends what happens with Jaw Taylor, but he'll probably be out there, rookie contract. Deion Henley, rookie contract. Cam Hart, rookie contract. Tarheeb still a rookie contract. Dean Leonard should contribute, rookie contract. I mean, it's just, and they'll draft guys. So it's a treat. It's a true treat to watch, and it's nice to be able to sit here. I know they have some big offenses coming up, but for right now, I just can't help but feel so good watching this defense. Like there's so many demons that are being exercised on our screens by Jesse Minter. And I know a lot of this, like the credit will go to Jim Harbaugh too. Yeah. But I think with the way the offenses, and especially the offensive line is playing, I don't necessarily know I can give like all that credit to Harbaugh. I really do think Minter specifically is that difference maker here. And we are truly blessed to have him for as long as we do as Chargers fans, because we've seen the alternative. And listen, I feel good about whoever replaces him, especially if it's someone on the current staff. But we've endured a lot. We've seen a lot. We heard the guru thing. We've seen the all-in season. We've seen this and that. And for us to finally get a defensive coordinator who actually can do good things for the defense, it's really nice to see. And last thing I'll say is all this new stuff, all these new players, all this new scheme and whatever, Khalil Mack, man, you're still awesome. Like regardless of who your coach is, your coordinator, whatever, Khalil Mack's still awesome. I hope he's okay. It seems like he will, but he was still fired up on the sideline, like just with the meanest mug about whatever's going on the field. Like just love Khalil Mack, man.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. There was no official mention of the injury, but we'll see what happens there. I think, like you mentioned, it should be fine. I wanted to point this out from LD Bruin that Troy Dye was great today too. He had a couple. He had a pass breakup at the end zone. He had a tackle for loss on a 4th down. We're not used to seeing these kind of contributions from these kind of players in the moments that they're getting them. So it's a true treat to see. Jesse Minter, I think because we're not national media, right? I think the national media needs to start talking about Jesse Minter as like one of the best defensive minds in the league. And when when we were entering the preseason, you and I were okay, like this coaching staff has some cool things. There's some cool players. Like maybe they can get to like 20th in defense. Like that was kind of our expectation. And we're fans of the team. You know, the way that the national media was talking about this defensive roster was they were expecting like at best like 25th defense in the league.
Yeah.
And the way that this defense is performing is crazy to me. So they entered today allowing 13.8 points per game. They allowed 10 today. Brett Coleman shared this great stat where, from a points per drive perspective, they're on par with like the 1985 Bears, the 2017 Jaguars defense, last year's Browns defense. Like when you picture like great defenses, the Chargers are right there in several categories. And again,
Mm-hmm.
they're not doing it with like a high end roster. Like you're talking about Puna Ford, Tier Tart, these guys who were cast offs. You're talking about 2 rookie cornerbacks. You're talking about starting Eli Apple today. Uh, Elijah Molden was available for a 2026 seventh round pick, and he's
Yeah.
just awesome. So this regime, like, it might seem like we're overreacting to some people. Like if national media came in here, we're like, man, like what are these Chargers fans talking about? But this is one of the best defenses in the league, and they have one Pro Bowler probably in Khalil Mack. Like maybe Derwin James gets there based
Yeah.
off of reputation. But this is
Mm-hmm.
not like a roster that's just stockpiled with elite talent, man. And so the work that this group is doing is crazy to me. Like people last year talked about Brian Flores in like this amazing way, like best defensive coordinator they've seen in a long time. The Vikings were like 20th in scoring defense last year. The Chargers are first, and their roster is arguably just as bad as the Vikings roster was last year. So I really hope Jesse Minter sticks around for a long time. But we all need to collectively just like really, really appreciate what we're seeing from him, because you mentioned earlier, I don't think we've ever seen this from the Chargers defense, because that 2006
No.
defense maybe is better, but there were like 8 all pro guys on that defense. This defense is doing this with just a kind of hodgepodge roster. And so major hat tip to Jesse Minter and what he's been able to do so far this season, and what he did today specifically also.
Yeah, I can't believe the Chargers have a historic defense with the talent that they have. And again, I'm not trying to throw the shade at those players, but it just kind of is. It is
Right.
what it is, and it's who they are. And
Yeah.
these guys were available for XYZ, or their cap hit was only a ABC because of
That's
their
funny.
previous history. Yeah, Moneyball 2 starring Brad Pitt as Jesse Minter. I'll be there. I'll watch it. Sure. Can I be an extra in that one? You can use clips of me doubting this defense. I don't care. If that's my cameo, that's totally fine. I can't believe it. I mean, like, it would be like the Broncos and their great defense for that won them the Super Bowl if they got to use Von Miller and then just the practice squad. Like that's what it feels like. You had the same output, but you just have the one player, and that's kind of it. The collective is outstanding. I don't think we've seen, that game against the Dolphins, the big primetime game against the Dolphins that Staley won with some guys missing. That was awesome. It's like that every week, but better.
Yeah.
And with probably quote unquote worse talent on paper. I don't even know how to quantify it. We have not seen anything like this. I go back to this all the time, but it's like how much we defended in respect to these guys, but Forrest Lamp, Dan Feeney, Scott Quessenberry, Spencer Pulley, and these guys like, these guys are gonna get better, they're gonna do Gooderist, and they're all that sort of stuff. And then you see Corey Linsley, and it's like, oh,
you're like,
what?
that's what
And
that
you
looks
kind of
like.
get mad. Yeah, oh, 5 pressures a year. Oh, I didn't know you could do that. Like that's what Jesse Minter is. We've been so trained and conditioned as Chargers fans to go like, like what does it get with G shucks, whatever. But yeah, the Minter, I can't say enough. I could spend an hour talking circles around the same points, but still being excited because Jesse Minter's just been that good.
Yeah, that's a great comparison of what we've seen.
Chad Reinhardt, Rich Ornberger, throw them in the chat, guys. You know all the names.
All the random offensive linemen. Chris Watt, that's a great one.
Chris Watts, yep.
Trent Scott, all that stuff. Chris Hairston.
Yeah, Chris Hairston.
Yeah.
King Dunlap.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. Last thing about the defense that I wanted to bring up, we've quietly gotten a bit of a resurgence from Tuli Tuipulotu over the last
Mm-hmm.
couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
As it currently stands, 6 pressures on a day for Tuli.
Nice.
Currently credited with 3 sacks on Pro Football Focus. I don't know if that will hold up or not. But
Yeah.
Tuli's defense on the day, 7 sacks according to PFF. I
Mm.
thought they were consistently getting into the backfield. Obviously, Khalil kind of started that. 2 sacks from Morgan Fox. It was a much better day from the Chargers pass rush today. That kind of, last week and this week. Hopefully, this is kind of a sign of things to come. Obviously, Khalil has to stay healthy, and we'll see what happens there. But much better, much more impactful pass rush performances over the last 2 weeks.
Absolutely. And yeah, Tuli last week, this week, Joey Bosa returns, and Tuli's like better and more productive. I don't know what it was. And we
Yeah,
watched the Cardinals game, and we didn't see a bad player, just some missed opportunities that were
sure.
almost great plays. But now you're seeing with Tuli, pass rush, run defense, like it's all kind of gelling again together. Like we said, the defense is getting better somehow. And part of that is definitely Tuli. So been very, very, very impressive there. Someone had something else in the chat. Oh, I lost it. Anyway, but yeah, Tuli was awesome today. Morgan Fox performance today was, we needed that. The Chargers definitely needed that. But it just kind of reinforced my belief that the Chargers need to get an interior pass rusher, because you watch how much better they were today with a
Yeah,
pass rush presence in the middle. A guy who's even better than that, or at least can keep up kind of the same pace that Morgan Fox can provide. That'd be huge for this team too. So we're still cool with an offensive addition, of course, but an interior pass rusher, they were so much better on defense today because Morgan Fox stepped up. Get another guy who can do that, even better.
yeah, 100%. I guess that we should also mention this officially. The Browns and Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb went 15 carries for 39 yards. Not a ton to get on the run defense kind of way for the Cleveland Browns. So again, Nick Chubb's not the same kind of player he's been, but run defense was outstanding as well. All right, Tyler, let's switch gears here and talk about the offense. Bit of an up and down performance. Obviously, 27 points on the board. Theoretically should be 31. Where do you want to start about the offense? You want to do negative stuff first or positive stuff first?
I think we can switch over to negative just for a little bit, because
Yeah.
so obviously at the end of the day, you look at the score. Holy cow, the Chargers put up 27 and should have had 31. Justin Herbert in this offense, they were on fire. They were clicking. Watching that game, you feel a bit differently. The first 2 touchdowns, I think, really changed the whole game for everyone.
Yeah.
Because of the 2 busted coverages after a sack, because of course, like, and the broadcast showed Herbert's sack replay, and then it cuts to Palmer standing in the end zone with the ball. Like, wait, what happened? It surprised everyone. The offense has to be able to figure it out in the second half, and frankly, throughout the game as well. When it comes to the run game, this offense really didn't look good today, which is insane to say given the box score and the numbers and everything. Justin Herbert had 250 yards at the half, but there were 2 busted coverage plays, one of them for 66 yards. There was the not Hail Mary, but the desperation play at the end of the first half.
Yeah.
It wasn't as good of an offense as the numbers suggest. And they got to start figuring this out in the fourth quarter, yes, but in the second half. Now, they have now scored in back-to-back weeks in the fourth quarter, so that's good. They had the McConkey play last week, J.K. Dobbins this week, and that final drive by the Chargers today was great. Like, the rushing attack was much better, but right now they're a team, and Jorge, right, I was about to say it, explosive plays are saving the Chargers right now. I was hoping for, on EPA per play, that website, for the success rate to be up, but I'm willing to bet that this Chargers offense is higher in EPA per play and lower in success rate, because they're getting, maybe more explosive chunk, like 66-yard touchdowns, but it's kind of everything in between. It's the 4 sacks they allowed in what feels like 6 plays. It's the Jalen Reagor minus play. It's the rushing plays. Like, J.K. Dobbins had 2 or 3 runs this game that were really, really strong runs. Obviously, the touchdown run was great. That final drive, he had another run. The touchdown run in the second quarter, that was great. I don't know what the numbers would be without those plays, and that's dangerous when you start taking out plays. But they were -3, -2, 0, 1, -1, 0, 1, 2, 1. It was rough. So the Chargers got to figure out the sustained success of their offense beyond just the explosive plays.
Yeah, so you look at specifically on the ground, like that's really where my concern is going to lie from today. So
Yeah.
JK had his first touchdown was a 16-yard run, and then he had a 34-yard run to kind of seal the game, essentially. That's 50
Yeah.
yards right there, and he had 85 yards on the day. So he has the 2 carries for 50 yards and then 13 for 35 on the rest of the day. It was a very anemic day from the rushing attack. And I think it's just really frustrating to see kind of some of the same issues that we saw last year, where, you know, Eric Tomlinson loses a play here, and then Zion loses a play here, Rashawn loses a play here, Joe loses a play. It was always just like one guy losing a play, and that's exactly what happened last year. But then JK pops a couple big runs and it looks a lot better. Like Jeremy Fowler tweeting out that JK is on pace for 1,300 yards. Like, yes, that is
Yes,
factually
technically.
correct, but the way that it looks has just not been great over the last few weeks. I thought, you know, we had the first 2 weeks, the Broncos game, the run game looked fantastic in those games, but outside of that, it's been a lot of like hit or miss, you know, explosive run. Otherwise, it's just kind of, you know, 2 yards in a cloud of dust right now. So they've got to figure out some kind of way to run the football. When they go into power run concepts with big, you know, multiple tight ends kind of stuff, and they're trying to get downhill, that's just not really working. And again, it's not just one specific player that's kind of struggling there. And so they've got to kind of, I think, get away from like what their nature is with the multiple tight ends and with the Scott Matlock. And you can keep those players out there, right? But, you know, put Matlock out there with 3 receivers and, you know, have a little bit more threat to throw the football in those moments. Maybe you're using Justin Herbert on some design runs. Like, they've got to figure out a way to kind of loosen up these defenses and get to running the football. Like, I think the fact that they went the entire third quarter with just the one rushing attempt kind of shows where they feel they're at on the ground. And
Yes.
Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, like, they're always going to say, like, oh, like, we feel good, we have the horses, like, that's their job. But they actively told us during the third quarter they don't trust their ability to run the football until the very end of the game, where, okay, now we just have to kind of like start salting the clock, and then JK happens to pop a couple of big runs. Like, they've got to figure this out. And it's everybody. Zion has had some bad moments. Bozeman's had some bad moments. Everybody's had bad moments. JK's choosing to go through the wrong hole a couple of times. Kamani's done that. It's everybody collectively has to get together and figure out how to effectively run the football, because, you know, we feel great about the defense. Justin Herbert's playing fantastic. But if they can't run the football against these better teams, nothing's really going to change. Like, if when you go to play the Chiefs, you go play the Ravens, you go play a playoff game on the road, you've got to be able to run the football. And right now they can't do it on a consistent level. So they've got to figure some things out, maybe change their concepts a little bit. We'll see what happens if Gus Edwards, if he can come back healthy, if that changes much. But the run game is just, you know, 85% of the time, it's not really doing anything for them.
No, it's not. And I'm glad you pointed out it's not an individual's issue. It's not just, oh, they just need a running back and therefore they'll be better. They could be. Any improvement in any area, of course, will make the Chargers better. But it's a whole team issue at this point.
Yeah.
Outside of maybe like a Will Dissly, and generally Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt aren't the issue. But overall, this team, it's like they can't ever fool the defense and get some sort of good spacing for themselves, or give J.K. Dobbins or Kamani Vidal a breather or a break, because sometimes it feels like as soon as they call a run play, every defender is there. There's no guesswork on their end, and it's not like, I don't know how much they've been trying to make things creative. They basically got like the jet sweep thing that isn't working at all to Jalen Reagor, which, you know, whatever, and it didn't work with Quentin either. They did try multiple players, but it's just not working. It's difficult for them, and it needs to be better. I'm still surprised that it isn't better, but it definitely needs to be better. They had the ball in the third quarter for, I think, 3.5 minutes on 3 drives. I mean, they averaged a minute of possession. Like, thank goodness the Browns drained 8.5 minutes off the clock before they threw an interception, because the Chargers offense was doing them no favors, which is crazy that the defense then also held up their end with no rest, basically. So yeah, the rushing attack's got to be better. I'm glad you brought up the fact that they didn't even run it in the third quarter. I was watching it and always like, ugh, why are we throwing it? The Chargers are up 20-3. Why are the Chargers throwing it? And then they'd run for -3. And you go, oh yeah, that's why. It's just not helping anybody. You can't get into the postseason and do that.
Yeah, and I keep expecting them to. It's going to get better, and they'll have better weeks. Like when they play the Bengals in a couple weeks, that run defense is like atrocious. It's not a very good run defense. You know, the Ravens overall are, I think, are a good defense. They can't really defend the run right now. So we'll see some better days when they play the Buccaneers. That's another team that's not very good against the run. So this is a unit that it's just going to take some time to figure out, I guess, for them to try and find a way to consistently, move the ball on the ground. The other thing I think we have to address is the Myles Garrett situation today. I mentioned this earlier, but people in my mentions were talking about Rashawn's overrated and Rashawn is not going to get paid now. And, he was a bum and he should switch sides and like all this stuff. And I'm disappointed, but at the same time, like Myles Garrett is one of those players that sometimes you just get got. And unfortunately for Rashawn, I don't know if he was expecting help on the first one, but Myles Garrett put a good move on him in the first sack, and then he beat him around the corner on the second sack. Sometimes it's just one of those days. For what it's worth, PFF still has him only allowing 2 pressures, and those 2 sacks were it. So sometimes it's just like that for Rashawn, for some of these players in general, for offensive linemen. The rep he had against Joe Alt to get a sack was insane. Like he forklifted Joe Alt, and like Myles Garrett is just like that. You guys, like, I don't know what to say. Yeah. Sometimes you just go up against a freak, and he does that. So I thought the Chargers kind of adjusted on a good move. They had some better plans for him after the first quarter, but let's calm down on the Rashawn Slater hate after one bad quarter. He's allowed to have a bad quarter every once in a while.
Yeah, and I think he did lose, like their losses regardless. I think there's some aspect where maybe the play calling could have helped a little bit there as well. But yes, sometimes the freaks of nature have great games. Myles Garrett, you may be hard pressed to find a better edge rusher candidate, prospect, I should say, for many, 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 many years. He was just that guy. Kind of sucks that he broke his streak of 4 or 5 games without a sack, and then suddenly he has 3 and 4 plays or whatever it was.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. He had 17 total pressures the previous 2 weeks and 0 sacks. So he was due. He's just a great football player. Like, it's just kind of like that sometimes.
Yeah. No, it's like giving up 2 sacks to Aaron Donald. It's just sometimes you just lose to Aaron Donald. It is crazy, though, that Rashawn Slater, you didn't hear anything else from him. Like you said, only 2 pressures currently, but it just happened to be the 2 sacks. It was like a Zion Johnson special. We're like, well, I only gave up 2, but the 2 I gave up were the bad ones. Yeah. So not great. Would love for it to be better. The good news is the Browns aren't going to the postseason. So you're not going to see Myles Garrett again in the postseason. You'll see a couple good edge rushers for sure. Potentially a TJ Watt again. But that was the last you'll see of Myles Garrett. Get better next time.
Yeah, I thought Rashawn and Joe both bounced back pretty strongly from that first quarter, but the interior continues to have problems, man. It's just the same stuff every single week. As it currently stands, they're crediting, let me make sure I get this right. They're crediting Zion Johnson with 3 pressures, 1 sack. Bradley Bozeman, 2 pressures, 1 sack. Trey Pipkins only allowed 1, so that's good. But on the first sack, I think it was Shelby Harris who had it. The Browns are running a 3-man stunt. So they're slanting the 2 guys towards the right, and then Shelby Harris loops around. And Zion, I thought, actually picked it up, but then Bradley is slow to pick up the other guy, and then that gets right through. So it's just like the Browns defensive line is very, very good. Like this unit it has some dudes. Dalvin Tomlinson's a good player. Shelby Harris is a good player. We really liked Michael Hall. He had a couple good moments today. But this interior continuing to have the same exact issues. We're now in 9 weeks into the season, and we still can't pick up the stunts. And it's just when you combine a subpar tackle performance from today plus the interior issues, that's what you get. You get, 8 sacks or whatever it was on Justin Herbert, a couple other big hits on him as well. So it's it's really frustrating, man. Like it's I think getting to a boiling point where they might have to consider making a personnel change at some point, because this is just like it's not tenable. Like again, if your goal
No.
is to just be a good team, like fine, your tackles can overcome a lot of your issues. But if you're trying to get to a point where you can win a playoff game and your interior offensive line is going to be the biggest thing keeping you from that, I'm kind of approaching the time where, I might be okay with a personnel change. And I don't know who that is. I'm sure a lot of people will clamor for that to be Zion. At this point, whatever is best for the team, I'm cool with it. I just this interior trio is not going to cut it. Like if they have to go to Pittsburgh to play a playoff game, I don't trust them to block Cam Hayward and Keanu Benton. Like, and that's the game right there. If they have to go to Buffalo, I don't trust them to block Ed Oliver and these guys. So, I think there's a real argument that Zion is not the worst of the three, but these consistent issues are putting them in a bind when it comes to potentially going in and trying to win a playoff game against some of these other teams who have great interior pass rushes.
Yeah, I mean, who are they going to play in the postseason? Chiefs, okay, good interior. Ravens, good interior. Like the Steelers, good interior defense. And that is the NFL. The NFL has a ton of great interior defensive linemen these days.
Yeah.
I guess you probably run into that anyway, but that also can't match up with the worst part of your team, which is the interior offensive line. On that first one, like you said, it felt like Zion was trying to split the difference because he moved and picked it up, no problem. Bozeman was not going to take his guy. So it almost felt like he was just trying to split the difference and say, okay, I'm just going to try to block, get in the way of both these guys, and the decision was, I guess, incorrect. But yeah, it wasn't great there. I'm glad Trey wasn't a liability today. But yeah, I don't know what. I think you're kind of stuck with this group unless you trade for a starter somehow at left guard, which theoretically is possible, but I don't really buy it's going to happen. So they really gotta figure it out. It's the same thing every week. And I couldn't even tell you why. I couldn't tell you why with the brain trust that they have and the players that they have. I could not tell you why these are the same issues.
Yeah.
It would almost be better if Zion Johnson were just getting knocked on his ass every play and it were an issue of talent or athleticism or something. But it's not. It's not the issue, which is more frustrating.
Yeah, I think this is great from Kevin. Zion, I don't think is consistently
Yes.
the worst, but his worst moments are bad in the worst situations, particularly known pass downs. I think if I had all the access to the world of all the film and I had all the time, right, and I cut up all of the clips where Zion is just one-on-one, like run blocking, pass blocking, and I just showed those clips, you're probably looking at a pretty good guard. It's all the moments where he has to work in tandem with somebody. That's when the frustrating moments happen. And it's almost always Bradley. It's almost never Rashawn. But it just something is really off there. And then, Bradley and Trey just have some natural limitations from an athletic standpoint that I think hold them up too. But for the most part, when Bozeman and Pipkins are trying to handle a stunt, they can do that. It's almost always Zion. And it's getting to the point where even I, who love Zion Johnson and had him at a top 5 prospect, I can't defend the way that he's playing. It's every single week. And it's just, it's to the point where if I have to choose to bench Zion in order to prevent these kind of performances, I think you have to consider it. And, it sucks that that's where we're at. It makes no sense that Zion is this kind of player. He was the perfect prospect from an interior offensive line standpoint. I don't think Sawyer is the answer. No. And then you're talking about, again, like one of the least athletic interior trios in the league. If you do that, they don't trust Jordan McFadden. They don't trust Brendan Hymas.
Who do they trust, Steven? Say it.
They trust Sam Mustipher, I guess. I don't know. I can't watch Sam Mustipher either. So the best case here is that Zion figures it out. But we've been saying that for, this entire season. So it's really frustrating. Again, not because like I don't think Zion is as bad as people make him out to be. But if our expectations are that this team has a chance to go play a playoff game and potentially win a playoff game, and you're going up against these AFC pass rushers, it's really difficult to have faith in the way that this interior trio is blocking. And I know this has been a lot about Zion, but it's not just Zion. It's just that he's kind of the one that is consistently letting the worst plays happen. So it's an unfortunate state for where we're at with him.
No, and he was almost unanimously, everyone when they hired Jim Harbaugh went, Zion Johnson, that's going to guy that's going to be the most improved player this year. And then what does he do? He goes and works with Duke Manyweather. Like, I don't understand.
Makes no
I
sense.
genuinely don't understand how it got worse. I don't care that he's not an all-pro player. I didn't expect him to be Zach Martin this year. I didn't expect him to be worse this year after, by all accounts, being healthy with Duke Manyweather in the same spot he's worked at. Rashawn Slater has generally been healthy with this offensive line oriented staff. I'm genuinely shocked. There's no way I would have guessed that it would be worse this year.
Yeah, no, it makes no sense. And again, we're in week 9. Like, these issues that they're having should have been solved at this point. And that's what's the most frustrating part for me. As Holden points out, it's all mental for him. It's mental for the whole entire trio. These are communication issues. You workshop how to play stunts every single day at practice, and the Chargers regime does it extra, like way more than the other previous regimes I've watched. So it's an issue that's got to get corrected. I think if it doesn't, there's a real chance that the Chargers are starting 3 new interior players next year. So hopefully that's not the case, but that's kind of where it's trending. All right, from a positive perspective, I think we do got to give a lot of credit for the way that Justin Herbert played today, despite all of the sacks and everything like that. Some of the throws that he was making were just fantastic. The back shoulder play to Joshua Palmer at the end of the second quarter was great. You obviously had some great moments with Ladd. The 2 busted coverages, right? But I thought when they had time, the passing offense looked like it looked the last couple of weeks, where it's just they're able to hit these chunk plays now at a rate where they were not able to previously. So I thought Justin played fantastic. I thought Ladd was great today. Not a ton of volume, but he gets 7 targets, 5 catches, 64 yards. That's a great day for him. And then Quentin, he gets credit for the lateral play, but man, it was his first 100-yard day of his career. Like, awesome. Regardless of the way that it happens, I think you get a shout out for that alone. And, he's been through a lot over the last year. And so seeing him get his first 100-yard day, I think he deserves a lot of credit for that too.
Yeah, and coming back and having his first 100-yard day, it was a strange 100-yard day because, the rest of the offense, he wasn't exactly involved. But hey, get it where you can. Happy for him. Herbert played awesome today. I'm trying to go through his passing stats. I don't recall if he had one last week. Yeah, so shocker, he's healthy. Has not had a turnover-worthy play in 3 straight weeks, despite dropping back or attempting the ball about 100 times. So 100 attempts the last 3 weeks or so. No turnover-worthy plays. Sure, the Cardinals, the Saints, not exactly world breaker defenses. The Browns were. The Browns have a good defense, and Denzel Ward played today, and he was awesome. I don't know. What was his passer rating in the end? He didn't end up with the perfect passer rating, did he?
No, he had a perfect passer rating at halftime, but PFF has his passer rating at 125, so still very, very good. But not
still very good. Level. Yeah, 285 despite 125, 282 yards despite the 6 sacks. Really impressed with his resilience too. I mean, again, the 6 sacks were a lot. This is a guy who's not been healthy all year. He got hit quite a bit today. And then it was, I got hit. Here's a touchdown. Oh, I got hit. Here's a touchdown. Oh, I'm backed up in my end zone. Here's a back shoulder throw. Just a really, really strong game from him. Really impressive overall too. And it feels like they're starting to trust him a bit more as he is healthier, of course. And as he shows them like, hey, you can trust me to throw it. I'm not going to make a mistake. My receivers might drop the ball. My tight end might drop the ball. The offensive line might not be able to pick things up. But I'll make one mistake every 4 games. And so you can trust me. And he's been awesome.
Yeah, it was a really good day from Justin Herbert. And so I think, we mentioned some of the offensive concerns, right? But the way that Justin is playing is just able to, overcome a lot of those circumstances around him. The tackles should be much better going forward. They're not going to play Myles Garrett every single week.
Yeah.
So those
No.
those three and Ladd, like the offense has enough to just consistently move the football and get some points. So again, 27 points on the scoreboard. Should have been 31 if Cameron Dicker hits his kicks, which he usually does. So a day from the offense that you take 9 times out of 10, but there's just some things that they've got to clean up if they're really going to hit their ceiling this year. All right, Tyler, any final thoughts before we get into some of these super chats and then head out for today?
No, I think we've covered most everything. Ladd McConkey did not hit 100 yards, so I guess I'm disappointed, but 64 is still pretty good. Once again, very consistent, has had 25 or more receiving yards in every game. I think he's had 40 or more in 5 or 6 straight games. He's awesome, man. Oh, we didn't talk about Cameron Dicker. I don't think we talked about him too much. Could be better. That was not great.
Yeah, Cleveland's not a super easy place to kick, but definitely expect better from Cameron Dicker. 2 missed kicks. His first miss from within 50 yards is like I went to the bathroom when he was attempting that 44-yard field goal, and Brooke goes, "He missed," and I'm like, "No, like that doesn't happen. He always hits his 40-yard field goals, and then he actually did miss." So, yeah, weird day. J.K. Scott, very up and down performance, especially when you're compared to Corey Bojorquez on the opposite side, who was just like booming things every single time. So, special teams was kind of weird today. They did block a field goal. Shout out to your Tart.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was a weird special teams day.
Yeah. Welcome back, Darius Davis, though.
Yes, big return for him. Okay, let's get to some of these super chats and then we'll head out. We always appreciate you guys for throwing these in here. So we'll touch on as many as we can. If you want to keep sending them, go right ahead. First one from Rich E. He says just plain W. So shout out to Rich. We appreciate that. Austin Smith, Joe Ortiz 2024. Certainly deserves to be in the conversation for executive of the season. I don't know if he'll get it if the Chargers aren't like a top tier AFC team, but I mean, he's clearly pushing some really right buttons so far.
Yeah, he is. I think at this point, unless they screw up, it's going to Adam Peters. How the Commanders are 7-2 right now, but still, heck of a year for Joe Ortiz so far.
I forget if it was Albert Breer or Ari Marov. One of them pointed out that they had never gone 7-2 under Dan Snyder. The last time they went,
wow.
The last time they started a season 7-2 was when Norv Turner was their head coach. And Norv Turner obviously coached the Chargers in between that time. So it's been a minute since the Commanders as a franchise have been this good. So that's Peters might win that, but Joe Ortiz should definitely be in the conversation. Next one from Jesse Aguilar. He says, still is him. Offense 1H continues to struggle.
Yeah, Tarheeb still. I'm happy to be wrong, man. We were pretty pumped about this draft class, and we didn't despise the Tarheeb still pick, but we were surprised. Didn't know who he was. Watched the games that were available to us. Was not particularly impressed. He's a better pro than he was his last year in college. What he's able to do against these receivers, actual pros, versus like Cornelius Johnson, who's not even on the Chargers right now, it's like night and day. I mean, he couldn't really hang with Cornelius Johnson, who's not in the NFL. But hey, the Browns passing attack, no problem.
Yeah. Next one in here from Mr. Sarl. We appreciate the big super chat. He says, good win. Still not loving the second half offense. Yeah, it's been better the last 2 weeks on the scoreboard, but it hasn't felt better. So they'll have to address it again. I think really it's the run game, and it feels weird talking about a Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh offense that doesn't have a reliable run game, but they've got to figure out some ways to get some extended drives in the second half, and I think that will really help alleviate some of the issues.
Yeah, so they've been marginally better, like we talked about. Touchdown last week, touchdown this week, had a field goal in there. By the time we get to the postseason, maybe there's hopefully just a little bit more improvement.
Yeah. Super sticker in here from John. We appreciate that. this is a long time ago at 1:30. So if you have a question, feel free and attach it in here. Otherwise, we do appreciate the super sticker. Next one from Kurt. He says Dobbins quietly having 6.1 yards per carry and 2 touchdowns. He's quiet. The quietly part for me that I actually agree with is that he's really good in the red zone this season. But we kind of talked about, the big plays kind of inflated his overall yards per carry. But the red zone, J.K. Dobbins has been very productive this season.
Yeah, he's money in the red zone so far this year.
Miss Andrew Soon says that was fun. Always in here with the super chats. I think you're over at your parents' house, so it should be
I am
a good time. And it was fun. It was a fun game. You always love these 27-3, 27-10 type games.
Yes, we get one every 4 years, so enjoy it.
Well, we've had 2 in a row, though.
Oh, that's true. Well, I didn't see that one. Of course, I missed the other one. I was at a wedding.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Pedro says, who do you think the Chargers should absolutely trade for before the trade deadline? So the deadline is Tuesday at 1 p.m. So people are kind of expecting a pretty active trade deadline. A lot of the teams that they were apparently waiting to see if they lost today did end up losing, including the Cleveland Browns. So reporters are kind of expecting an active trade deadline. Do you think the Chargers will partake in that active trade deadline?
It's tricky. When you win big the last 2 weeks, you can think your roster's kind of in the right spot. Some guys will return, be healthy. I could see them convincing themselves, but I think they will be active. I don't know that they'll make a move. However, with the Cowboys losing today, please go get Osa. Just go make that happen.
Yeah.
Not that it's going to be cheap or easy, but that franchise is going nowhere. I'm happy to take Osa off your hands.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. So Jeremy Fowler described the Chargers as window shopping ahead of the trade deadline. There's been some mentions of the Chargers poking around. They're certainly not as active or perceived as active as like the Lions, who are aggressively pursuing people. The Cardinals apparently are like being aggressive. The Chiefs are still trying to get another player, which of course they are. I think if the Chargers trade for somebody, it's not going to be the position that people want. I don't think Joe Ortiz is going to look at this receiver market and be like, yeah, this guy is going to change our offense. I kind of disagree with that take, but not to say that it is a take, but I think there's a sneaky chance they go trade for a corner now. I mean, Jasir Taylor did not finish today's game. The 2 rookies are playing great, but I think you probably want to go get a player you feel comfortable starting, going forward. Dean Leonard, Asante Samuel Jr., both on injured reserve. Fulton dealing with his second hamstring injury. Now Jasir is hurt again. I think there's a decent chance they go looking for a cornerback this week just to at least fortify the depth behind the 2 rookies going forward.
Yeah. I don't even know how open the Panthers will be to a trade anymore. One, they've already shipped out their guy, and 2, they won. And Bryce Young had a good day finally. So I don't know if they just kind of want to see if they can do something this year. Not that they're making the postseason, but some positive momentum.
Yeah. Marshawn Lattimore should be available. That might be a little too pricey for the Chargers. But even going and getting like a Ronald Darby type from the Jaguars or somebody that can just be a quality backup behind these young corners, I think would be pretty helpful. And then you mentioned it, interior pass rusher. So I think there's a decent chance they make a trade, but I don't think Joe Ortiz is going to go out and be like ultra aggressive.
No, I don't think so.
So yeah, we have about 48 hours until the trade deadline. So we'll see what happens. Next one here from Nick S. The Rundy with a light box only in Staley's dream. They're playing light boxes at the highest rate in the league. They're defending the run with 6 defenders at a much higher rate than Staley ever did. And they're doing it at a much higher level than Staley ever did. So the run defense has been a great story this season. And I think obviously it starts with Poona Ford, Otito, Tier Tart, but Deion Henley's taking a significant leap. Denzel Perryman is just like running through dudes all day long. I love to see it. So the middle of the Chargers defense is significantly better than it's been the last 3 years.
Absolutely. The Staley defense was always an idea of like ors, and with Minter it's and. Like with Staley, it's we can defend the run or we can defend the pass. And Minter's like, why don't we just do both? And they're playing very well. You know, Lohi Gilman towards the red zone there had 2 great run stops, played well. Yep. Just good stuff from the secondary.
Yeah, 100%. Joe Cruz says, so fun to watch our team destroy, but I can't help but want more from our run game. What's the answer?
I don't know, because it was everybody today. The last couple of days, it feels like it's been everyone. How much did Hayden Hurst play today? I think he was just mostly a blocker today, yeah?
Right.
I'm sorry, not Hurst. Sorry, Disley.
Will Disley had 39 snaps.
Okay.
24 as a route runner, 2 as a pass blocker, and 13 as a run blocker. Hayden Hurst only logged 8 total snaps.
So, I don't know why I would have guessed Disley had more. It's interesting because what are the 3 games the Chargers have been the best at this year in run blocking? Raiders, Panthers, and you'd say maybe the Broncos.
I would say Broncos.
And that's Disley's the 3 games Disley has played the most snaps as a run blocker.
That helps. Getting your best run blocker out there would certainly help more. So Scott Matlock had 17 total snaps, 7 as a pass blocker, 9 as a run blocker, 1 as a route runner. Eric Tomlinson had 16 snaps, 5 as a route runner, 1 as a pass blocker, and 10 as a run blocker. So of the 4, Hayden Hurst logged the fewest snaps, and yeah, he's coming back from an injury. I think that's probably intentional.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, more Disley, more shotgun concepts, get Justin onto the move a little bit, I think would help quite a bit. Yes. Next one here from Tara. Appreciate the big number here. I assume that's 27 for the 27 points. If not, that's okay too. Obviously,
I need the Chargers to win by 50 now. Holy
cow. She says, first off, appreciate you too as always. Top 3 fave Chargers podcasters. Justin Herbert playing lights out. Henley is so good. Molden in a turnover machine. He really is. Cam/Tarheeb have been so good. QJ breakout season, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, me too. Did Quentin Johnson just pass his previous high from last year, or he's pretty close?
Ooh, that's a good question.
100 yards will help you.
Yeah, definitely. So last season he had 431 yards. This season has 282. So he's missed a few games, but
yeah. Safe to say he will at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he'll surpass his total. Will Disley, like, he's already surpassed his season total for like 4 of his 6 career seasons. Palmer, I think there's a decent chance that he hits a career high, but he needs a 100-yard game here and there also to get that done.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, Elijah Molden, it kind of just like blows my mind. Like, this guy was available for a 7th round pick in 2026. Like, basically the Titans were like, yeah, get this guy off our team, and he's just been awesome. So it's, again, credit to him, credit to the Chargers defense for putting him in the right positions, but one of the cooler stories of the season so far.
Yeah. For what it's worth, by the way, Ladd McConkey has passed Quentin Johnson's rookie total after today. He's at 440.
All right. Ladd's very good. I'm very excited with him.
Pretty good.
Quantum Humanics. Denzel Ward should just go on the plane and come home to LA with the boys. I respect the idea that contract is not possible, unfortunately. However, Greg Newsome could be a very affordable contract for the Chargers to take on. I don't think he's close to the player that Denzel Ward is, but he's a still very good corner that the Chargers could definitely afford.
Yeah, and Denzel Ward being on concussion number 6 doesn't make me feel great.
That also, yeah. I can't believe he played today.
I can't believe he played either.
Concussion protocol is usually supposed to be stricter for a player who's coming off of like multiple concussions because this is his second this season.
Oh,
And so
wow. Okay.
usually it's more difficult to go through protocol when it's your second one of the season. And so for him to play today is kind of crazy.
Mm.
I appreciate this one from Kurt. He says Minter is a horrible DC defensive coordinator, needs to step down to a position coach. No other team should consider hiring him. Honestly, I respect the sarcasm, and yes, we need to start those prayer circles that he does not leave anytime soon.
Yeah, I gotta find like his old tweets or something and get him out there. And,
We're not trying to ruin the guy's career. We're just trying to make sure he sticks around.
I'll just find a mildly offensive one. Oh, don't worry about it. We'll make it work.
Yeah. Similar question here from Quantum. What are the chances that the Chargers go to Jesse Minter and set up a deal where he's the heir apparent, like the Patriots with Mayo the last few years? At Jim's age, he might not be here too long.
I think Jim's goal is to die on the football field. Like, I think he wants to be 150 and die on the football field. Yeah. So I think that this is definitely a conversation if Minter sticks around for 5 more years, maybe. But I think Harbaugh is basically going to do it until they fire him or like he can't physically do it anymore. Yeah. So I don't know if he would be into the heir apparent thing, especially when like Minter is going to have a year and a half, and it might not always be good. So if someone says, "Hey, here's a great situation, here's $10 million," yeah, go take it if you're Jesse Minter.
Yeah. So Jim is 60. His contract is a 5-year contract. So
right
at minimum, you have like you're not firing Jim anytime soon. That contract would not be a fireable contract for the Chargers specifically as a franchise. I don't think you can convince Jesse to stay here that long. And even then, like, we're talking about the trajectory here being extremely positive. So I don't know. I think if you're the Chargers, you can go to Jesse Minter and say, hey, we're going to make you the highest paid defensive coordinator in the league. And maybe that convinces him to stay here for 3 years instead of 2 years. But at the end of the day, like, I have to imagine that somebody like Jesse is probably thinking that he wants to be a head coach someday. And whether that's the NFL or college, I think that we're just kind of trending on a trajectory where he is going to be a head coach at some level. And I think he will be very, very good at it. But like the league is really chasing the Ravens tree right now. Like there's so many defensive coordinators out there running the Ravens style defense. And, Mike McDonald, we'll see what kind of happens. They have to do some roster revamping, but right now, the best Ravens style defense is the Chargers. It is Jesse Minter. So he's going to have a lot of good things to put on his resume to potentially show owners, hey, I can do this. And maybe that doesn't result in him leaving this offseason, because Mike Vrabel's poking around, Bill Belichick is poking around, Pete Carroll still wants to coach, etc. And the league's always going to kind of trend more towards offensive coaches anyway. But there's a pretty good chance that in 2026, Jesse Minter is the best coaching candidate because he has another season of a top 10 defense with the Chargers and just continues to stack that resume. So there's a way the Chargers can compensate him to stick around. But I think eventually we're going to get to a point where Jesse does leave and go and gets a head coaching job somewhere else.
Yeah, if it's not this year, it's next year. It's basically how I feel about it. And I don't think it'll be this year with so many, like Ben Johnson's the prize candidate. They're going to go after these offensive guys or veteran guys. And I think Minter will also wait for the right situation. I don't know that there's any really great situations that might be opening up. We'll see. It depends how you feel about Dallas, I guess, if you want to go coach there or not.
Yeah.
Jacksonville, who knows? But I think he'll stick around this year. But then after that, it's the all-in season because you're losing Jesse Minter at the end of it.
Yeah. There's a good chance that Cliff Kingsbury is a hot commodity also. I mean, you look at what he's doing in Washington. Yep. He's been a head coach, mildly successful head coach, but that's the thing that matters to owners. So there's a cycle of candidates that, if there's only 4 openings and one's going to Ben Johnson and one's going to Cliff Kingsbury and one's going to Mike Vrabel, you kind of run out of spots. Of course, Bill Belichick, although Bill Belichick has like a 24-year-old girlfriend, is kind of living his best life. I don't know how interested he's going to be in coaching after this year, but we'll see. The Chicago Bears might be a very good situation.
If that job opens up, I mean, they're going to want to, like, they're the Ben Johnson team. If it opens up, I would imagine. That'd be a fun team.
And Cliff coached Caleb in the offseason. They almost hired him as their offensive coordinator until the Commanders threw him a bunch of money. So, yeah, I can't see that regime lasting much longer, especially after the whole Tyreek Stevenson thing today. Yikes.
Yeah, good thing we didn't put him on a Chargers channel once.
Yeah. Derwin James, did he play special teams today?
I did not see that, but I can go and look at the game and see if that happened.
Their live grades are gone now. Shoot.
Of course. I didn't see him. A lot of Nick Neiman today, who was awesome.
Yes. He had 3 tackles, I think.
At least 3 for sure. He was credited, I think, on the day with 5 tackles, but I think a couple were defense.
Yeah. Hope Simi Fohoko's okay, man. We finally got the broadcasting team to say his name correctly. And then, of course, he gets injured. So that's again, the special teams unit has just kind of been going through this cycle of injuries. He's been an awesome gunner, great blocker on the kickoff team, punt teams. So hope he's okay. It didn't look great, but we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
Okay, last one here from Jacob Arnault. We really appreciate all of you guys sending these in today, as always. He says, great win. This is what you want to see from a good team. Browns were riding high, and the Chargers dominated. And he says, Minter for president, please. We're trying to keep Jesse Minter around in L.A., Jacob, but I get the sentiment, obviously.
Yes. They spent the entire broadcast before the game and through maybe the first half talking about the Browns resurgence and how happy they were and how excited they were. And then just the third and fourth quarter panning to all the poor Browns fans just sitting there like it's, just another day in Browns history. Kind of felt bad, but it was good when there was a Chargers win. Minter for president, sure. Yeah, election coming up. You can vote for Minter or Harbaugh or whatever. Whatever you're into.
There's some Washington fans have gone viral for putting Jaden Daniels on their ballots, like actually. So, hey man, I get it. I am so ready for political ads to be over. I am so sick of every commercial being nothing but political ads. I just it's so frustrating. But it is what you want to see from a good team. Coming back to the comment here, we kind of spoke about this yesterday. This is a game that a good team, a good playoff team wins, and they were able to get that done. They dominated. It was 27-3 for the bulk of the game. I just things are kind of clicking together. There are definitely some things that you want to see, cleaned up for this offense in particular. The special teams unit has some things they need to clean up now. But this turnaround has been quick, and they're winning games that they have traditionally lost. Last year's Chargers team probably gets housed today. This is probably an opposite score. So this regime has really done a fantastic job of just, getting the culture and the buy-in and all the buzzwords right. But it really does show out there on the football field. I feel great with where this team is at overall, being 5-3 and trending up towards the rest of the AFC playoff picture. So it was a very, very good win from Jim Harbaugh, Jesse Minter, and everybody else. So, big shout out, big kudos to them. Are you looking up something?
Just really random. Who was the Eagles defensive coordinator in 2021? Yes, I almost had the connection. I was curious who the Eagles defensive coordinator was in 2021 because someone in the chat asked when the last time the Chargers were 5-3, and it was week 9 of 2021 where they beat the Eagles. And I was curious if Jim Schwartz was their defensive coordinator, but he was not.
That was the first year of Gannon, I think.
That was Gannon. Yeah. So I was curious if they moved to 5-3 in week 9 against a Jim Schwartz defense. As history repeats itself, but nope.
Yeah. All right, you guys, that is going to do it for us today. Make sure like, comment, subscribe, leave a rating or review. All that good stuff does help continue to grow the show. We appreciate you so much for tuning in live. We appreciate you guys for tuning in after the fact. We'll be back on Tuesday for our usual film review. I'm excited to dive into this one. I love watching film as always, but I just can't wait to see what this defensive film looks like, and we'll touch on some of our takeaways at that point. For Tyler, myself, this has been the Guilty as Charged podcast. As always, we'll see you next time. Bolt up.